Get ready for a wild story. In the US, farmers are fighting a two-front war on their lands. One is growing crops and raising livestock, while the other is keeping those pesky feral hogs and other invasive species at bay. It's been a long time since these critters invaded American farmlands, and farmers thought they had it under control. But then something unexpected happened. In Canada, an unusual breed of hog emerged, and when you hear what makes them special, yes, it's human fault again. You'll understand why we're now dealing with the super pig invasion. Meet the super pigs, a real-life comic book creature born out of Canada's need for tougher animals that could thrive in its chilly climate. Back in the 1980s, scientists embarked on an experiment to create the ultimate farm animal by crossing domestic pigs with wild boars, and it worked like magic. The super pigs grew bigger, stronger, and more meaty than their regular counterparts. With all these impressive traits, they were a hit for hunting in Canadian game reserves, where they were often released into the wild. But here's the catch: some of these incredible animals escaped or were set free, and before anyone knew it, they began to make their way south towards the US, starting what we now call the super pig invasion. So let's paint a clearer picture here. These super pigs are not your average farm animals, they're almost cartoonish. Adults can grow up to 485 pounds. That's more than double what the largest wild pigs weigh in America, which tops out at around 240 pounds. But it doesn't stop there. They're also taller, standing about 3 feet at their shoulders and stretching an impressive 5 feet from snout to tail. Now imagine a mix of the ferocity found in wild boars and the prolific breeding habits of domesticated pigs. You get an almost unstoppable force. These enormous creatures aren't just about size, they're also remarkably resilient. Their thick fur coats shield them from harsh winter conditions, giving them an edge over other animals in colder climates. But let's not forget their most terrifying feature, yet their adaptability. Meet the super pigs, an extraordinary breed engineered for life in freezing conditions. Unlike their feral pig counterparts, these monstrous creatures aren't held back by low temperatures. Instead, they've turned cold to their advantage. Originating in Western Canada, where biting winds can plunge temperatures down to a bone-chilling 58 degrees Fahrenheit, the super pigs have cleverly adapted their survival strategy. Meet the super pigs, a breed of extraordinary intelligence and survival skills that allows them to thrive in even the most unforgiving winter conditions. Hailing from Western Canada, where temperatures can plummet as low as 58 degrees Fahrenheit, these incredible creatures have adapted an ingenious strategy for staying warm. They employ their sharp tusks to dig complex networks of tunnels beneath the snow layer. Some of these underground passages reach a remarkable depth of 6.6 feet. These super pigs then craft cozy hideyouts inside their subterranean shelters by either collecting cattail stems for bedding or utilizing natural cattail growth within their burrows, effectively building insulated winter dens that rival the craftsmanship of igloos built by humans. It's almost as if they have mastered the art of creating self-sustaining microclimates. But only when temperatures drop to below -22 degrees Fahrenheit do these underground hideouts become so warm that the air inside rushes out and turns into vapor, showcasing just how resourceful and remarkable super pigs truly are. Meet the super pigs, a breed renowned globally as one of the most hazardous invasive species on Earth, surpassing even feral pigs in their detrimental impact. The mere existence of these animals disrupts the ecological balance, causing widespread destruction to flora, fauna, and human communities alike. Their insatiable appetite knows no bounds. They devour everything from insects to root vegetables, leaving nothing but barren landscapes and damaged ecosystems in their wake. These voracious creatures don't just consume vegetation, they also excavate large areas of land as they search for sustenance. A destructive practice that can lead to soil erosion, increased greenhouse gas emissions, and a significant loss of biodiversity. Furthermore, super pigs pose a direct threat to both domesticated animals and humans, making them not only an environmental menace, but a potential danger to public safety as well. The ferocity of super pigs extends far beyond their voracious appetite. They're highly skilled predators with an insatiable thirst for destruction. Their menu isn't limited to plant life. Small and larger animals, eggs, and even baby ones aren't safe from their reach. With their digging prowess, they uproot trees, polluting the soil in the process and causing severe water quality degradation. The impact on ecosystems is catastrophic, leaving no aspect of nature untouched. In a particularly unsettling display of their destructive power, super pigs have been known to desecrate cemeteries, a grave violation that has nothing to do with hunting or feeding. Even grass can't withstand their presence. Once they pass through, it's as if a bomb has hit the area. And in the aftermath, these invasive creatures become breeding grounds for diseases, posing an additional threat to both animals and humans alike. The super pig threat doesn't just stop at ecological destruction. They're also ticking time bombs for human health and the multi-billion-dollar global pork industry. These invasive creatures are reservoirs of diseases like the influenza virus that can jump to humans, with mutated strains that leave us vulnerable. What's even more alarming is their susceptibility to African swine fever, a highly contagious disease first discovered in 1921. Its rapid spread across the globe has left a trail of devastation wherever it goes, and if feral pigs were to contract this virus, the consequences for the U.S. pork industry would be nothing short of catastrophic. The ripple effect on our food supply chain could have far-reaching impacts that resonate deeply with all of us. The U.S., as the world's third largest pork producer, holds a significant position in this delicate balance. The African swine fever threat has already reaped devastating consequences worldwide, with China being hit particularly hard when over 43 million pigs were culled after an outbreak in 2018 to contain the virus's spread. While some might think distance could offer protection from such global health threats, the recent confirmation of African swine fever cases on farms in both Haiti and the Dominican Republic in 2021 should raise alarm bells. The proximity of these outbreaks shows just how quickly this highly contagious disease can spread, making it a pressing concern for our agricultural landscape and food security. The notion of feral pigs roaming freely may appear harmless when they're rooting around in your neighbor's yard or leaving behind a trail of destruction on your property, but their potential impact extends far beyond your backyard. Known for carrying the pseudorabies virus, super pigs can cause devastating consequences for wildlife and pets alike, from raccoons to domestic cats and dogs, without even posing a risk to human health themselves. But that's just the beginning. These invasive creatures are capable of spreading an array of diseases, underscoring the importance of understanding their presence and the potential dangers they bring. It all started with one tiny step of colonization in the early 16th century when Spanish explorer Hernando de Soto brought a small group of pigs along on his ill-fated journey to Florida in 1539. Little did anyone know they were planting the seed for what would become an ecological invasion. With their initial numbers totaling just 13 pigs, within 4 years these early settlers had multiplied exponentially, reaching nearly 700 strong, marking one of the earliest recorded instances of feral pigs establishing a foothold in the continental United States. Fast forward to the present day and you have a whole different story unfolding, one where these once seemingly harmless creatures are now wreaking havoc across the country. It all began with a peculiar trend that emerged just a few decades ago. People started intentionally releasing feral pigs into new territories, but this time not as part of an exploratory expedition or even for food, surprisingly. It was for hunting purposes. However, things didn't go as planned. Canada's pig invasion story starts with a different kind of introduction, one driven by commercial ambitions rather than exploration or hunting. The farmers of Canada brought in feral pigs during the 80s, but their goal was not to establish wild populations, but instead to create hyper-efficient meat-producing animals. However, when the market for these super pigs took a downturn with the early 2000s collapse, the once thriving farms found themselves burdened with unwanted livestock. The farmers' initial solution: release them into the wild. They thought the Canadian climate would naturally keep their problem under control and that the pigs would freeze to death, but nature had other plans. By 2017, Canada was facing a wild pig catastrophe. Over 993 waterways had been affected, and these invasive critters were taking up an enormous 300,000 square miles of land. That's roughly 4 times the size of Great Britain. But what makes this situation even more concerning is their growing migration patterns. Feral hogs used to be mostly confined to the warm southern states in the US, but when you thought things were under control, super pigs started moving north from Canada, and it seems like they're unstoppable. Experts agree that a multi-pronged approach is necessary. This includes having top-notch surveillance systems set up, being ready to pounce on any detected hog, and deploying traps across the affected areas. In the ongoing battle against wild hogs, unconventional methods have emerged. Net guns fired from helicopters, warning systems set up to alert of hog movements, and even poisons, though its use sparks debate. In some parts of the US, this menace has birthed a lucrative hunting industry, where people are paid thousands to use machine guns for culling these invasive animals. However, experts warn it might be less effective than you'd expect, drawing parallels with Australia's ill-fated war on emus. With no clear victor in sight, states like California have eased hunting restrictions, now allowing year-round feral hog hunting due to the significant damage they cause. When you consider Texas alone, with its staggering 253 counties infested by these invasive species, the challenge doesn't seem so daunting anymore. Feral pigs are essentially everywhere, and as authorities acknowledge their destructive impact, hunters have devised a range of creative traps designed specifically to catch them. One such innovative solution is the box trap, essentially a wooden enclosure with a hinged door that springs shut when triggered by an unsuspecting pig inside. Then there's the cage trap built from thick wire on a lightweight metal frame. It offers a slightly different approach, one where pigs can potentially break free, forcing hunters to re-strategize their tactics in real time. Imagine trying to tackle an overwhelming problem with a success rate as low as 2 or 3%. That's what it's like when you're on the hunt for feral pigs. Despite alluring incentives and even the unique thrill of shooting them from a helicopter, hunters still struggle to make a dent in their population. The idea might seem straightforward: create an environment where these destructive critters feel trapped, then strike. But let me tell you, it's not as easy as it sounds. Trap pens, sturdy, round cages designed specifically for this purpose, are often used. They prevent the pigs from cornering themselves and making a break for freedom. However, even with such clever strategies in place, hunters still manage to hit their mark only 2 or 3% of the time, leaving many to wonder what it takes to truly make an impact on these invasive species. The battle against feral hogs is a losing war for humans. No matter how hard we try, these wild critters keep gaining ground. In fact, authorities have taken drastic measures by banning hunting altogether in some states, but it's backfired spectacularly. It seems that hunting actually makes the pigs more vigilant, causing them to change their behavior and become nocturnal, making them nearly impossible to find and take down. Despite this challenge, we can't just stand by while these invasive species wreak havoc on our economy. Wild hogs are responsible for a staggering $0.5 billion in damages across the US each year. To tackle the problem, the state has already splurged over $100 million from federal funds, but things have just taken a turn for the worse with the emergence of the so-called super pigs migrating down from the north. It's safe to say that matters are spiraling out of control, and some people are suggesting it's time to bring in the big guns. Literally, you've got to see this. The US Army is stepping in with high-tech gear to take down these feral hogs. Thermal imaging scopes, which you can even find on eBay for around $2,000 each, are being used to track and locate these invasive pigs. Next up, drones will be joining the hunt. It's only natural since drones have become a go-to tool in many sectors already. But it gets even more intense. Specially trained hunters with military backgrounds, including former officers and combat veterans, are taking on these wild pigs like they're enemy combatants. This isn't some Hollywood fantasy. They genuinely succeed where others fail, clearing out entire farms of feral hogs and proving that military might can indeed be effective against this destructive force. You won't believe what's happening next. The US Army is teaming up to take down feral hogs, but it's not like some Wild West show. These intelligent pigs are outsmarting their hunters, hiding in wooded areas at night, making helicopter searches a costly and time-consuming affair. The price tag, a whopping $1,000 per hunt on average. Most people tackle these invasive animals through shooting, hunting, or trapping, with shooting being the priciest method of all. But just as you thought it was under control, these super pigs are taking over, causing costs that are still largely unknown and quite concerning. Get ready to meet the king of super pigs, Hogzilla. This massive hybrid pig was caught back in 2004 in Georgia, and it's a mix of wild boar and domestic pig that just wouldn't quit. After being hunted down, scientists weighed him at an astonishing 800 pounds and measured him to be around 7 to 8 feet long. While the people who took him down claimed he was even bigger, those numbers are already mind-blowing enough. To put things into perspective, a regular domestic pig usually clocks in at about 53 inches long and 29 inches tall, while wild pigs reach lengths of 59 to 71 inches and stand 35 inches high. So, Hogzilla is basically the biggest of them all, an urban legend in his own right. Let's talk about the clever world of feral pigs. Despite being hunted, these smart animals have some pretty cool survival skills. They get stressed and become super cautious when faced with danger, stepping up their hiding game to evade hunters. But here's where it gets interesting. Wild pigs are actually very community-driven. You might be surprised by a heartwarming video that shows a grown female hog helping 2 little ones escape from a trap, cleverly moving some logs blocking the path. This isn't just sweet, but also impressive, considering she figured out how the trap works in the first place. It's no wonder hunters often complain that traps don't live up to their expectations. Feral pigs are clearly very resourceful and not easy prey. Imagine having a superpower that lets you sniff out your next meal from an astonishing 7 miles away. Feral pigs have just that. They've got a nose so powerful it can pick up scents buried as deep as 25 feet. This incredible ability is thanks to their varied diet, making them omnivores. It makes total sense why having a sharp sense of smell would be super helpful when foraging for food. Not only does it save energy by not having to dig randomly, but knowing where danger lurks also helps these smart animals keep a safe distance. And yet, despite all their clever survival tricks, many big feral pigs still end up being shot by hunters on a regular basis. So what happens after a hunter takes down a feral pig? While it might seem like a waste that all this protein goes inutilized, many everyday hunters do enjoy their catch. However, selling wild pig meat in bulk doesn't make much sense due to its higher cost compared to regular pork. Plus, people often avoid eating it because of the potential health risks from diseases these animals can carry. Despite all this, some places are still trying to sell it. They're hoping that those who know and trust their sources might give wild pig meat a chance. But overall, it seems like there's still a long way to go before we see feral pigs being farmed for their meat or becoming a mainstream food option. Let's take a look at how some businesses are successfully turning this wild protein into a culinary delight. For instance, in Austin, Texas, Daidu Restaurant is already on board with using wild pork in their dishes, and Broken Arrow Ranch is taking it to the next level by not only capturing but also raising hogs for a 6-month period of proper feeding before they're ready for the dinner plate. There's an important catch. These aren't regular adult male feral pigs. The hormones in them can make the meat taste off, so chefs opt for younger or female hogs instead. Interestingly enough, there are only 15 federally monitored facilities across the United States where wild hogs are processed and regulated for human consumption. Let's shift gears now to the situation in Canada, where they're dealing with what's essentially an untamed population of these super pigs. You might be wondering how they're handling this problem since, unlike in the US, Canadians aren't exactly lining up for wild hog meat at their local grocery stores. In reality, the issue lies in hunting them down, and it's not just about knowing where to look. Catching a super pig is no easy feat. As proof of that, Canada ran a program paying $5 per pair of ears for each animal turned in as part of a culling effort. However, over 5 months, they didn't receive a single pair of ears. Now, let's dive into Canada's super pig problem, where these feral hogs aren't just larger than your average southern wild boar, but also impressively smarter, and they've got some slick hiding skills that make them tough to pin down. It wasn't until after a 3-year-long effort that Canadians even managed to get their hands on a rough map of these elusive critters' hangouts. And you might be thinking, why not just invite the whole super pig family over for dinner? The thing is, finding these wild boars first needs to happen before any supper plans can be made in Canada. Meanwhile, back in the US, efforts to tackle feral hog populations are still ongoing. These adaptable animals may evade hunters, but they're causing a real ruckus in agricultural areas with their voracious appetites and impressive digging skills that leave fields looking more like they've been tilled by a tractor. Let's bring it into perspective. Feral hogs aren't just causing trouble, they're making some farmers go broke in the process. The estimated annual damage cost, $0.5 billion. For instance, Adam McClendon from Georgia has seen his family farm get ravaged for 15 years straight to the tune of over $100,000 a year by these destructive critters. It's not just about trampled crops. When you factor in the massive pits they dig, it can take acres out of commission permanently. And the cleanup process, forget about it. It's like playing a guessing game with these pegs, wondering if they'll come back to wreak more havoc as soon as you're done fixing things up. Let's talk about how Canadians are tackling their super pig problem. Sounds eerily familiar to our US cousins' struggles. These Canadian super pigs aren't picky eaters. They chomp down anything from wheat to barley, even rapeseed. The damage. Imagine a fleet of bulldozers leaving massive trails through farmland, destroying acres in the process. And it's not just about trampling crops. These pigs love their mud baths and riverbeds too, causing erosion and polluting local waterways. They're also disease carriers that threaten domestic pig populations. No wonder farmers on both sides of the border are seeking creative solutions beyond traditional methods to keep these destructive critters at bay. One innovative approach. Meet the Judas pigs, trained wild pigs equipped with a beacon-carrying collar. First, they catch one of these feral pigs and fit it with this tracking device, then release it back into the wild. So here's how the Judas pig system works. First off, these clever animals are social butterflies, living in groups known as sounders. Once they've got their beacon collar on, they'll quickly rejoin their troop, but with a twist. Trappers then swoop in, capturing or shooting all the other pigs, while letting the Judas pigs slip away unharmed, ready to lead them straight into another trap. This clever cycle continues as long as our undercover pig stays alive and kicking, helping farmers to whittle down these destructive groups one sounder at a time. But it's not just agriculture that takes a hit from super pigs. They're also causing serious damage to native wildlife, which we'll dive deeper into next. Imagine a nightmare scenario where a large, aggressive beast is chasing your turkey chick. Sounds terrifying, right? Unfortunately, this isn't just fiction. Feral pigs are real-life invasive predators wreaking havoc on native species' daily routines. Research shows they don't discriminate between their prey and can snatch unsuspecting young from under the noses of other animals like raccoons, squirrel, deer. Scientists have observed a change in the habits of these creatures with trail cameras. Whenever wild pigs are lurking around, other animals alter their usual movement patterns to avoid any unwanted encounters. It's clear that feral pigs aren't just destructive, they're also disrupting the delicate balance of local ecosystems. You've caught a glimpse into the diverse array of wildlife already affected by feral hogs. Think northern bobwhites, red-cheeked salamanders, snails, turtles, and yes, even the majestic four-toed salamander. These aren't the only ones in their crosshairs. With their supercharged appetites and expanded territories, we could be on the cusp of witnessing super pigs push more species to the brink of extinction. For instance, the Florida panther, which preys on feral hogs, is also at risk due to a deadly pseudo-rabies virus it can catch from them. It's a vicious cycle. Until next time, stay curious.